Good evening, everyone. I'm Joseph Goldberg. Tonight I'll be playing the bard from the Sleeping Giant Inn in Riverwood and tell you what it's like to live in the harsh world of Skyrim. Relax, and let's begin. Look at the fire. It doesn't burn, it breathes, and the tavern breathes with it. We're in the heart of Riverwood, a small but sturdy village caught between the river and the mountains. The gateway to Skyrim. You're here, you're warm, and that already means a lot. Beyond the walls lies a cold, majestic world, the one sung about in songs. But songs always lie a little. They embellish. I want to tell you the truth about what it means to be here. There's Alvor, the blacksmith. His hammer beats from dawn till dusk. Sometimes, when the wind carries the sound, it feels like the rhythm of the earth itself. People talk about dragons, ice wraiths, and vampires. But truly, all of Skyrim stands on that simple, stubborn hammering. That's the sound of stability, the sound of life continuing, no matter what. And there's Delphine, the innkeeper. She doesn't talk much, she just watches. And in that watchfulness, there's so much strength. She knows every traveler, knows what each is looking for. She's the anchor of this place. Believe me, in a world like ours, someone who can offer you a steady hearth and a hot meal is worth more than any warrior. Skyrim is a land of contrasts. You ride past frost-covered fields and see a mammoth grazing peacefully beside a giant. It's a world where magic and daily life intertwine, where ancient Dwemer ruins stand beside a farmhouse, and no one is surprised anymore. It's simply part of the landscape. Sometimes at night when I sit here alone, I hear sounds. Not ghosts. The distant rush of the river where the old sawmills stand. The whisper of the wind in the pines that reach toward High Hrothgar. These are the sounds of the ancient world, reminders that we are only guests here, staying but a moment. I've traveled far. I've seen solitude, its imperial might. I've seen Winterhold, its shattered college and endless sea. But nowhere is there peace like here, where you can finally lower your guard. And now, let me tell you something. I don't want to speak of the Dragonborn's battles. Everyone already sings of those. I want to tell you a story about something small, yet important. A story about a strange man who came to Riverwood on one of the coldest nights and brought with him a quiet light. He never spoke of magic, yet his presence changed everything. This is the story of the silent storyteller, and how his silence was louder than any dragon's roar. Settle in, take another sip of ale. This tale will be a long one. It began on a night so cold that even the fire in the hearth seemed reluctant to burn. He came in less than an hour before closing. That night, there were only 3 of us in the inn. Myself, Delphine behind the counter, and an old hunter named Garrel dozing by the fire, his thick furs barely holding back the chill. The door opened and a blast of icy wind swept in, nearly snuffing out the candles. He stepped inside. A man, not tall, not short, not old, but not young either. His hood was drawn low, hiding his face. No armor, no weapon, just a long, simple traveler's robe the color of winter fog. He said nothing. Simply walked to the counter, nodded to Delphine, and placed 3 golden septims on the wood. Delphine, who's seen as much as all of Skyrim combined, merely raised an eyebrow. She poured him a mug of hot mead and slid it across. He took it slowly, carefully, sat down at the farthest table, in the darkest corner, and then something strange began. He didn't drink, didn't eat, just sat there, staring at the fire. But the cold that had come in with him seemed to vanish. The tavern suddenly felt cozier. The fire burned brighter. The creaking floorboards, which had been annoying during the day, now sounded soft and comforting. Garrel, the hunter, stopped wheezing in his sleep and began breathing evenly. I, who had nearly dozed off over my lute, felt a sudden surge of quiet energy. I started playing, softly, not for him, but because I wanted to. The music flowed on its own, like a stream remembering its path. He didn't react to the music, just sat there. And that was the first lesson of the silent as storyteller. You don't need words to tell something. You just need to be. Be real. We closed for the night, but he stayed. Delphine didn't charge him. He wasn't a guest. He was part of the inn, like the hearth, like the timber it was built from. He stayed for 3 days. 3 days of absolute silence. Each morning, he left. No one knew where. Each evening, he returned. Always with the same calm nod to Delphine. Always to the same corner. And during those 3 days, something remarkable happened to Riverwood. Alvar forged the strongest iron of his life. Sigrid and Hilda, the local traders, said business was better than in midsummer. People stopped quarreling over little things. Each morning, a calm hung over the village like mist. And that was the second lesson. Peace isn't the absence of sound. It's when every sound and every act falls into its rightful place. On the third day, he finally broke his silence, not with words, with his hand. Slowly, he set his mug on the table, took something from his belt, not a sword, not a dagger, a small, ancient, dull piece of wood. He ran his fingers along it, then looked at me, straight into my eyes. There was no command, no plea, only expectation. And I understood. He wanted me to play his silence, to play his journey. I took up my lute, and my fingers moved on their own. I played as I never had before, not joyfully, not sadly. I played of snow's silence, of the depth of night, of a falling star heard only by the trees. The silent storyteller listened, and for the first time, a shadow of a smile crossed his face. Keep listening, my friend. The story has only just begun. That smile, fleeting as a spark, yet just as bright. When he smiled, I felt a new, unknown current pour into my music. I played until my fingers went numb from strain and reverence, and he simply sat there, giving me a final nod, one of gratitude, of understanding. By morning, he was gone. No farewells, no trace. Delphine said he'd just stepped outside while she was stoking the hearth, and never came back. No one looked for him, no one asked where he'd gone, because his departure was as natural as his arrival. He was the wind, the one that brings peace, then moves on into the mountains, carrying its silence to others. But he left behind an invisible trace. From that day, life in the Sleeping Giant Inn changed, softly, quietly. No one spoke of it, but everyone felt it. Alvar, the blacksmith, began coming to the tavern just to sit by the fire, not to argue about stormcloaks or the Empire, but simply to sit, silently. He told me that now, when he forges, he no longer strives for strength in each strike. He just feels the metal, and the iron shapes itself as it wishes. His work became sturdier, quieter, cleaner. And I changed too. I stopped singing of things I hadn't seen. I stopped chasing glory. My repertoire grew smaller, but deeper. Now I play only quiet melodies, about the mist that hangs over the river at dawn, about sunlight filtering through 1,000 pine needles. I play about silence, and in that silence I began to see other, no less important stories of Skyrim, stories that do not seek attention. I realized Skyrim is full of unseen guardians. They wear no armor, wield no blades, yet they keep the world from falling apart. They are the standing stones. You've seen them at the entrance to Whiterun, 3 of them, the warrior, the mage, and the thief. They've stood there for thousands of years. No one knows who placed them, but they stand, and no one dares to move them. I set out on a journey, not for fame, but to see them all, to sit beside each one and listen to what it might tell me through its eternal silence. The quietest among them is the Lady Stone, on an island in the middle of Lake Ilinalta. To reach it, one must cross icy waters. I took an old boat and, in the thickest hour of fog, began to row. The water was black as tar, the silence complete. No wind, no waves, only the slow, steady splash of water against the sides of my boat. I rowed slowly, cautiously, and in that slow motion I felt time itself pause. When I reached the island, the Lady Stone greeted me with cold. Just a boulder covered in lichen and moss, yet power emanated from it, a power that does not shout but holds. I sat at its base, closed my eyes, and I began to hear, not words, no. I heard the echo of thousands of years of water beating against this island, and the stone stands, unmoving, unresisting. It simply lets the waves strike it, and I understood its lesson. In Skyrim, when the storm comes, be it blizzard, dragon, or war, you don't need to shout or run. You must become the stone. Just stand. Let the storm pass through you. Keep your inner, unshakable calm. That night, sitting beside the Lady Stone, I felt a kind of weariness that only the deepest relaxation can bring. A weariness that whispers, "You've done all you can. Now simply be." It was a heavy but blessed feeling. I spent the whole night there. By morning, as the fog lifted, I saw a fisherman on the lake. He sat motionless in his boat like a reflection in the mirror of the water. He didn't look at the stone. He just went about his work, quietly, as if it were the most natural and sacred act in the world. And in that, I saw the truth of Skyrim. The grandeur of ancient gods and stones exists right beside simple, stubborn life, and the two never interfere with each other. When I returned to Riverwood, my music became even slower. Now, when I play, I imagine myself as that stone, motionless, eternal. My new song, the one I play now, is a song of patience, of not rushing the morning, of not rushing the warmth, of understanding that everything that must happen will happen in its own time. And until it does, all we can do is sit by the fire and listen. Listen to the crackle of wood, listen to the tavern breathing, listen to the river flowing. All these are the sounds of peace. I will keep playing, quietly, without pause. Keep listening, my friend. I play. And my melody flows like the water around the Lady Stone. Slowly, continuously. Let this music be the only thought in your mind. When I returned from my quiet journey across the standing stones, I realized that the true greatness of Skyrim hides not only in its ancient artifacts, but in its most ordinary people, especially those who live on the edge, in the deepest cold. I went north, to Winterhold. That city is a ghost. Once it was the capital, the heart of magic, the pride of the Nords. Now, half of it hangs over a cliff, devoured by the sea and time, and there, among those ruins, stands the college. Mages. People think they are loud, that they constantly cast spells full of fire and lightning. But the truth I found was different. The truest calm I ever found was in the Arcaneum, the college's library. It's a vast circular hall. The air there is cold but dry, smelling of old leather, parchment, and dust. At its center lies eternal silence. And the mages who work there, they are the quietest people I have ever met. They don't speak, they don't shout, they don't even move suddenly. They sit at their desks, bent over books, simply reading. They seek not gold nor glory. They seek knowledge. And it is an endless, quiet search. I sat in a corner, somewhere behind the shelves, and just watched. An old Altmer, almost invisible in the shadow, turned the pages of a massive tome, and the sound, that soft, rustling sound of turning parchment, was the only thing that disturbed the peace. I listened to that rustle, every leaf, every page. It was 1,000 years of history bound in parchment, and that sound, that whisper of paper, was like the whisper of time itself. It spoke of how our entire lives are but a single page in an immense, endless book. And the mages, they know this. They know their spells are only words, their lives only moments. That's why they are so quiet. They are submerged in eternity. Their calm is the calm of focus, the peace of a mind that has found its true work. Sometimes, at night, when the aurora danced above the sea and the wind howled through the cracks of the college, I saw one of the mages step out onto the balcony. He didn't look at the lights. He looked at the sea, the northern sea. It's always there, cold, black, endless. It pounds against the cliffs. It destroyed half the city. Yet it doesn't roar like the southern seas. It hums, a deep, low, guttural sound that you feel not in your ears but in your bones, the sound of infinite indifference. And the mage stands there, listening. He doesn't try to understand it. He doesn't resist it. He simply absorbs it. And that hum, that sound of the eternal sea, it's another lesson of Skyrim. A lesson that there are forces that simply are, and the best we can do is acknowledge their greatness and find our own quiet corner beside them. Listen. Even here, in the warmth of the sleeping giant, if you listen closely, you can hear that distant hum. It's not the sea, it's your blood in your temples or the wind against the chimney, but it's a rhythm. It's what connects us to Winterhold, to the Dwemer ruins, to the Lady Stone. We are all searching for our own rhythm in this chaotic world, and that rhythm is always quiet, always steady. It never shouts. I play now of the rustle of parchment, of the deep hum of the northern sea, of the still mage who knows that the most important truths are never loud, they dwell in silence. We've come back home, to the sleeping giant, and here awaits us the most honest, the most humble hero of Skyrim, ale. Delphine doesn't sell the loud fizzy beer they brew in Whiterun. Here we have Riverwood Honey Ale. It's special. Its recipe is as simple as life itself in our village, and it's been passed down for centuries. Let me tell you about the process. This isn't a story about magic. It's a story about patience, about how from coarse barley and pure, icy water, warmth is born. The water. It comes straight from the river, upstream where it's the cleanest and swiftest. Olver the blacksmith always jokes that our water carries a bit of magic from the graybeards washing themselves up on the mountain. We know that's not true, but still there is something special in it. It's cold. It's infused with the spirit of the mountains. Then comes the barley. It doesn't grow here, in this frost. It's brought in from the farms around Whiterun, but once it reaches Delphine, she feels it. She knows when to grind it and when to let it begin its quiet, patient work. The most important stage is fermentation. It's a process that can't be rushed. Delphine uses old clay barrels. They stand in a cool, dark cellar where a silent, invisible life slowly unfolds. If you press your ear to one of those barrels, all you'll hear is the faintest, steady hissing. Not a roar, not a bubbling, just a quiet, measured whisper of life. Yeast, those tiny, unseen workers, slowly transform sweetness into warmth and strength, and that hiss, that slow, persistent labor in the dark, that, to me, is another symbol of Skyrim. The most important things in this world are done in silence and darkness. The blacksmith forges through the quiet of night, the mage reads in the darkness of his library, and our ale matures in the darkness of the cellar. When the ale is ready, it doesn't strike the head, it warms. It's not drunkenness. It's a gentle heat that begins in the stomach and spreads slowly to the limbs, driving out the last of the mountain cold. There's no bitterness in it, only the soft sweetness of wild honey that Delphine adds before serving. The taste of our ale, it's the taste of patience, the taste of Riverwood. Sit down, take a slow sip, close your eyes, feel that warmth slowly, calmly filling you. This is not just a drink, it's an invitation to peace, the result of thousands of quiet, unseen actions, pure water, stubborn barley, and Delphine's wise patience. And as you drink, you become part of that rhythm, a rhythm no dragon or war can break, because it is quiet, and because it is real. On a night like this, when the fire crackles softly and the frozen world lies outside the window, Riverwood Honey Ale is the only philosophy we need. It teaches that the best things in life require time and silence. I'll keep playing, and let my music be as steady and warm as that old ale. May it help you find your own quiet, inner cellar where all things happen slowly and just right. The ale has warmed you, I see. Good. Now that warmth has settled within you, we can talk about what it has pushed away. Haste. Haste is the sickness of big cities, the sickness of Whiterun, where merchants shout and guards run. Here in Riverwood, we know that haste isn't just an enemy, it's foolishness. In Skyrim, those who rush risk losing their way, slipping, and vanishing beneath the snow forever. Let me tell you about someone who learned that lesson too late. Many years ago, when I was still a young bard, I met a merchant. He was hauling a great caravan from Morrowind, packed with fine spices and silks. He was obsessed. He had to reach solitude as quickly as possible, to make his deal before the snowstorms began. He listened to no one. He ignored the warnings about the treacherous autumn storms in the mountain passes. He came into the tavern, drank his ale in one gulp without tasting it, and demanded entertainment. He didn't care for my quiet songs of peace. He wanted loud ballads of gold and swift victories. He wanted time itself to move faster. He left before dawn. 2 days later, the kind of blizzard that happens once in a decade struck, the true wrath of kine. A week later, they found him. Not him, really. What was left of him. He hadn't frozen. He had only lost his way a couple of miles from Whiterun, trying to take a shortcut. They found him beside his wagon, stuck deep in a snowdrift. He hadn't died from cold. He had died from effort. He had fought so hard to free his wagon, to fight the snow, that he simply exhausted himself. His body was found frozen in a posture of struggle, his muscles still tense even after life had left him. His caravan, his precious spices, his gold, everything was still there, untouched beneath the snow. He hadn't lost his wealth. He'd lost himself to haste. When Alvor, our blacksmith, went with the others to recover the body, he said something I'll never forget. Skyrim doesn't forgive those who forget to breathe. That is the first rule of survival. Not strength, not magic, but the ability to pause. To tell yourself, I am here. I am warm. And I don't need to rush anywhere. So when you sit here, listening to the crackle of the fire, think of that merchant. Think of how important it is to value every slow, quiet moment. If you ever feel that you must do something right now, take a deep, slow breath and set it aside. Skyrim can wait. It always waits. Look at the shadow on the wall. That's the shadow of my lute, large and distorted. It stays still until the fire flickers. It's like a clock that measures time not in minutes, but in warmth. As long as the shadow lies steady, time flows correctly. The night is deep. I don't know what awaits us beyond the pass, what's stirring in Solitude or Windhelm, but I know that right now we are warm. And that is the only truth that matters. Let's just listen. Listen to the tavern settling under the weight of night. The creak of the wood you hear isn't breaking. It's the sound of the beams finding their most comfortable, peaceful position. Find your most peaceful position. Let go of your hands. Let go of your feet. And let this quiet, measured life of Riverwood sink into you. Now, as we speak of patience and of how Skyrim always waits, I want to tell you about its true masters, the beings who embody that waiting, that unhurried stillness. I speak of the giants. You've probably seen their herds of mammoths on the plains of Whiterun. They look immense, wild, and mindless, but that's only how they appear from afar. Come closer, not to fight, but to observe. Giants do not live by our sense of time. Their lives are a slow, endless journey across the tundra. Their steps are long, yet impossibly calm. They do not run. They do not rush. They simply walk, from one pasture to another, from one stone altar to the next. Once I spent an entire day watching a single giant from a safe distance. He stood beside a bonfire the size of a tavern, simply watching his mammoths. He didn't move. He didn't speak. He just stood there, a living monolith of fur and skin. And in his utter stillness, in that perfect calm, there was more strength than in all the legions of the Empire. He didn't worry about tomorrow. He didn't grieve the past. He was completely and utterly here and now. His fire was enormous, yet it burned low and steady with a soft blue flame. It didn't crackle or hiss. It simply gave off a smooth, giant warmth. The giants know how to tend fire so it doesn't flee, so it doesn't demand attention. It was the calmest fire I've ever seen. It burned for warmth, not for spectacle. Their mammoths, too, moved to this rhythm, huge, shaggy creatures, slower even than the giants themselves. Their chewing is a slow, soothing crunch, each bite of moss taken with dignity, as if it were the most important meal in the world. When night falls, the giant simply lies down by the fire. And his sleep, it's not like ours, restless and fragmented. His sleep is a descent. He becomes part of the earth itself. You look at him, and it feels as though he isn't sleeping through a night, but through an entire geological age. And this is the lesson I learned from the giants. Do not hurry to live. Your time is not limited if you learn to move to the rhythm of the north, a steady step, a slow fire, a deep breath. When I return to the tavern, I carry that rhythm with me. I try to walk like a mammoth, to speak like a giant, rarely but with weight, and to play like that calm blue fire, giving steady, quiet warmth. Do you feel it? Even here by the hearth we can borrow that giant peace. Let go of every small, buzzing thought fluttering around you like midges. They don't matter. The mammoth doesn't notice the midges, and neither should you. I will continue. We will sit here in the warmth until the night itself retreats. For now, simply be here. Be like stone. Be like a sleeping giant. We've spoken of silence, of patience, but there is one more, the simplest element of life here in Riverwood, an element that carries peace, the scent. You can feel it even now, a blend of things. Wood smoke, always pine, because pine burns slowly and releases a clean, resinous aroma. It mixes with the faintly sour tang of spilled ale, and of course with the earthy smell of moss and soil clinging to travelers' cloaks. But there is one scent above all others, the most soothing, the most alive, the smell of wet leather and fur. Imagine it. You've just come in from the frost. Your leather armor, your cloak, your boots, all soaked through from snow, mist, or your own breath. You walk toward the hearth, take off your damp cloak, and hang it up to dry. That's when it begins. As the leather warms, it releases a thick, warm animal scent. It's the smell of life, the smell of the road, the smell of survival. That scent tells your story without words. You've crossed the cold, you've fought it, and now you are warm again. It is the smell of victory in the small daily war against the north, and it brings a deep primal satisfaction. When you breathe it in, you forget about grand deeds. You think only of one thing, how good it feels that your clothes will dry, and tomorrow you'll be ready once more. A simple, earthly happiness. That smell blends with the scent of the burning hearth, and if you focus, you might notice something else, something faint, the smell of steel. Alvor, our blacksmith, always carries a trace of it, steel and coal dust, even when he sits here, drinking his ale. It's not harsh or unpleasant. It's the scent of pure, forged strength, a reminder that in Riverwood there's someone who makes things solid, someone whose work won't shatter at the first strike. And when you breathe in these scents, the pine smoke, the wet leather, the clean steel, you are breathing in order itself. Order within Skyrim's chaos, like an invisible dome holding this small world together. And so I sit here, playing, imagining my music as another kind of scent, quiet and even, like the smoke rising from a chimney and vanishing into the frozen sky. It doesn't linger forever, it simply was, and it warmed those who felt it. Close your eyes, and just breathe. Breathe in Skyrim, not its legends, not its magic, but its simple, stubborn, living warmth. Within it lies the deepest peace. I'll keep playing. We'll stay here until all the scents mix into one, a single, gentle aroma that wraps around you like a soft blanket. We've spoken of scents, of sounds. Now, lift your gaze, look at the light. It's not that bright electric light that drives away all shadows. Number. The light in the sleeping giant. It is soft, it is warm, it is yielding. It always yields to the shadows, and in that there is wisdom. We have no window glass here, only treated hides and shutters, yet even through them, light sometimes seeps in. The nightlight of Skyrim. Sometimes it is the cold blue light of Masser and Secunda, the two moons that hang above us eternally, watching. This light gives no warmth, but it brings clarity. In it, you see the world not as you wish, but as it is, black and white, sharp, frosted. And this honesty is calming. It says, no half-tones. There is cold and there is warmth. You chose warmth, and that is good. But there is another light I love most, a light that comes very rarely, only on the clearest, frostiest nights. The light of Aurora, the northern lights. I've mentioned it before, but I want you to imagine it not as a dance of gods, but as silence, When aurora flares, it makes no sound. It simply reveals itself. Green, violet, sometimes red, waves crawl slowly, endlessly slowly across the sky. And this movement, it is like nothing else. Not hurry, not running. It is eternity in motion. And you stand somewhere on a porch or peering through a shutter gap, and you watch. 1 hour, 2 hours. Your feet freeze, but you cannot look away. Because this spectacle teaches you that the greatest events in the universe unfold without shouts and without fuss. Aurora is like the silent storyteller, but in the sky. She carries beauty and majesty, asking nothing in return except your patient attention. And the most important part, this light never promises warmth. It is always cold, yet, strangely, it warms. It warms your soul with the realization that you are a small part of something infinitely vast and beautiful. And that feeling binds you to the world. Now, return to the hearth. Our earthly fire is our answer to aurora. It is warmth. It is color. It says, yes, the world is cold and immense, but here, in this small circle, there is life, and there are we. And as you sit, feeling this yellow, warm light upon you, remember the blue, cold glow outside. Remember its silence. And let these two forces, warmth and quiet, balance you. I continue. We remain here, between heat and cold, between the hearth's light and the moon's glow. And may this point of balance bring you peace. We have spoken of light, of scent. But to truly understand Skyrim, you must feel its texture. Everything here has weight, a rough, honest surface. Take your mug of ale in your hands, wood, polished by thousands of hands, yet you still feel its uneven, living grain. It is not smooth glass, it is warm, yielding wood, and it is a reminder. Things that endure do not need to be perfect. They must be reliable. Feel the coarse, rough wool of your cloak. Even now, dry and warm, it pricks. This is mountain sheep wool, hardened by bitter frost. And this texture, it tells its story. A story of how you must be thick, dense, to withstand the wind from the pass. And when you feel this roughness, you feel protected. You feel your connection to this harsh nature. Or the stone. The floor beneath your feet, the hearth, lined with stone, cold, even by the fire. Stone always stays cold, but it is not a cold of hostility. It is the cold of permanence. Stone does not hurry. It does not change its temperature for your comfort. It simply exists. And that reminds us how fleeting we are, how dependent on warmth. I love leaning against the stonework of the hearth, feeling the contrast, the fire's heat and the stone's cold. It is like Skyrim's embrace. Harsh, yet holding you. There's another texture you may not have noticed. Old leather. Look at the saddles and harnesses hanging in some corner of the tavern, waiting for tomorrow's journey. Leather worn by years of use, not new. Cracked, scratched. Yet these scratches tell stories better than any song. They speak of the master falling in the mud, of fording a river, of brushing against a branch in the forest. And this old working leather smells not of tanning, but of salt and sweat, and it feels soft despite its wear. It is the texture of faithfulness, faithfulness to the path, faithfulness to one's craft. It says, serve long and honestly, and you become softer and more dependable. Let these sensations, the warm wood, the coarse wool, the cold, eternal stone, fill you. Let them clear your mind of all abstract, restless thought. What remains is only what you can feel, what you can know right now. I continue. We will sit here and let every sound, every scent, every texture become your soul lulling reality. Skyrim, beyond its outward harshness, also shapes a particular philosophy, a philosophy of minimalism born from necessity. There is no place here for excess. The merchant in Riverwood has nothing superfluous. Alvar the blacksmith has only the tools he truly needs. Every traveler carries only what they can bear. And this is a great lesson in letting go. When you walk a snow-covered pass, you realize that every extra pound is an enemy. An extra coin, a useless trinket, an unnecessary, unimportant thought, each one weighs you down. The true wisdom of Skyrim lies in learning to live with the minimum. Think of the hunters' cabins scattered through the forests. They are small. There is no room for luxury. There is a hearth, a fur on the floor, a pot, and that is enough. The hunter who lives in such a cabin does not worry about what to buy. He worries about what to preserve, the fire, the warmth, life itself. And in this minimalism there is incredible peace. When you have nothing extra, you have no extra desires, no extra worries. Your life reduces to simple, pure tasks: gather food, light the fire, survive. And in this simplicity lies the deepest form of focus. We, sitting here in the Sleeping Giant, practice this minimalism as well. We have 4 walls, a roof, food, and ale. That is all that is needed for happiness and peace. When you leave this place, take no extra thoughts with you. Leave behind all mental clutter, all unspoken grievances, all plans that can wait, all worries that have no immediate solution. Imagine standing by a river. All these extra thoughts are like dirt. You simply let them flow away. The white river will carry them north to the sea, where they lose their shape and their power. When you live in Skyrim, you understand. You must be empty inside to be filled with peace, like an empty mug waiting to be filled with warm ale, like an empty path waiting for your step. The silent storyteller was the embodiment of this minimalism. His clothes bore nothing extra, his movements had nothing superfluous, and in his words, of which there were none, there was nothing unnecessary. I continue. Let this atmosphere of minimalism and simplicity envelop you. Feel yourself releasing your excess worries, how they grow lighter and vanish, carried away by an invisible current. What remains is only warmth, silence, and peace. Now that you have felt the simplicity and emptiness brought by Skyrim's minimalism, let us remember that this emptiness must be filled with something. It must be filled with light. Not a loud fire, but a quiet, steady, inner light. The true heroes of Skyrim are not those who shout and swing their swords. They are those who simply keep shining when all around is absolute darkness. I want to tell you about the vigilance of Stendar. You may have met them on the roads, people clad in heavy leather and chainmail, bearing the symbol of their god, Stendar, the god of mercy, upon their chests. Most people think they are merely hunters of vampires in Daedra. And yes, they are. But their work runs much deeper, and it is incredibly quiet. When vigilants move, they do not attract attention. They move slowly, with dignity, like the giants I spoke of. Their goal is not victory in a loud battle, but maintaining balance. They seek out evil where no one else does, in abandoned basements, forgotten caves, at the edges of the map. They do not seek glory. They do not seek gold. They seek darkness, and they confront it, not to take revenge, but simply to remove it. Their mercy is not forgiveness of evil. Their mercy is the protection of those who cannot protect themselves, and they do it in complete silence. No song will ever be sung of the vigilant who cleared a cave of vampires. He did it and left. Only those who live nearby notice that their livestock no longer fall ill and nights grow calmer. Their silence is trust. Trust that kindness and persistence are themselves a force. They do not need thanks. They do not need recognition. All they need is to make the world a little brighter. I remember one old vigilant who stayed at the Sleeping Giant for a night. He was utterly exhausted. I offered him a song. He shook his head. He simply sat by the fire, his scarred hands holding a small, simple icon of Stendar. He did not speak of his deeds. He spoke of a candle. He said that darkness is not an enemy. Darkness is simply the absence of light, and to overcome it, you do not need to fight. You simply need to light a candle, one small candle, in a window on the darkest night. That is all that is needed. It will not drive all the vampires from Skyrim, but it will show the lost traveler the way. It will give hope to the one watching it from afar. And he said that a vigilant's work is to be that candle, to burn quietly, steadily, giving warmth and light until the flame is spent. This became yet another lesson for me. You do not need to become the sun. It is enough to be a candle. Let this image, the quiet vigilant sitting in the dark holding his small light, fill your mind. It is an image of peace born from the greatest responsibility, the responsibility simply to be the light. I continue. Let the fire in our hearth be your candle, your point of calm. It burns not for shouts, but for silence. I want to tell you about a magic that is not taught at the College of Winterhold. This is the magic of herbs and alchemy. Look at Arcadia, the alchemist from Whiterun. Her shop is not a place for spells, it is a place for quiet work. Her magic is patience and knowledge, knowing how to combine the simplest things to create something extraordinary. When I enter her shop, I immediately feel the scents. It is a complex, layered aroma. Dried nightshade, lunar sugar, crushed frost salts. These are not just smells, they are the smells of transformation. Arcadia does not use powerful enchantments. She uses a mortar and pestle. And that sound, the pestle tapping on the stone, is one of the most meditative, most soothing sounds in all of Skyrim. It is rhythmic, it is monotonous. Tuk-tuk, tuk-tuk. It is the sound of chaos turning into order, of a rough, raw root or petal being transformed into a healing powder. There is no rush in this process. Crush the herbs too quickly, and you lose their power. Become distracted, and you spoil the potion. Alchemy is a lesson in focus. You must be here, fully, with each strike of the pestle, and Arcadia herself is like a potion, quiet, concentrated. She can sit for hours over her ingredients, gazing at them as if reading their inner, invisible magic. She knows the power is not in her, but in the combination. She takes frost salt, icy, pure, cold, and combines it with fire salt, hot, red, active. And the result is not an explosion, but the potion of frost resistance, the ability to endure the harshest cold. It is a metaphor for all of Skyrim. Within us, like in that potion, two opposing forces must meet, the external cold and the internal fire. And only when they quietly, without struggle, combine, do we become resilient. I sit here, in the tavern, listening to the sounds of Riverwood, the hammer of Alvor, the soft creak of the floorboards, and I imagine that somewhere in Whiterun, Arcadia continues her quiet work. Tuk-tuk, tuk-tuk. And this silence of alchemy, this slow, persistent tapping, is also part of the peace we seek. It says, find your rhythm, combine your cold and your fire, and you will become strength. Let the image of the alchemist, quietly working in her shop, enter your mind. It is the peace of creation, the peace of labor, the peace of focus. We have walked a long path tonight. We have seen the quiet light of the silent bard. We have stood by the eternal Lady Stone. We have heard the hum of Dwemer mechanisms and the steady tapping of Arcadia's pestle. We have seen that in Skyrim, the greatest things are the quietest. Now, return here to the hearth. In the sleeping giant, it has grown even quieter. The guests who sat at the tables have long gone or are asleep. Only the fire, Delphine, dozing behind the counter, and I, continuing my quiet tale, remain. The night has reached its peak. This is the time when, according to Nord beliefs, the boundary between worlds is thinnest. And in this hour, one must be as calm as possible, so as not to attract what should remain undisturbed. I want to tell you about the final, most important element of peace in Skyrim, the breath of the North itself. When you sit here, in warmth, you are protected. But imagine you are not in a tavern, but in a small cave somewhere on the slopes of High Hrothgar, dark, cold, and you hear this sound, a sound that seeps into your bones. It is not the wind. It is not a wolf's howl. It is the sound of frozen earth. Skyrim is not just land. It is a vast, living, breathing being, and it breathes very slowly. When frost grips the stones, when ice binds the rivers, the earth emits a barely perceptible, very low, crackling sound, a quiet groan of tension that then releases. Every night when the cold is at its peak, I imagine it, the crack of mountain rock, the crack of glaciers, the crack of frozen water in the trunks of trees. And this crack does not alarm. On the contrary, it tells us that even the largest, hardest things in the world follow a rhythm, the rhythm of contraction and release. And we, humans, must follow this rhythm. Contraction is the day, work, the struggle for warmth. Release is night, the hearth, silence. Now, feel this rhythm within yourself. Take a deep, slow breath. This is contraction. Your lungs fill with air. You are ready for the cold. You are ready for the world. And now, a long, slow exhale. This is release. Let go of everything. Release the tension in your shoulders, your jaw, your hands. Exhale all that you no longer need. Inhale, contraction, exhale, release. This breath, your personal Dwemer hum, your own Lady Stone. It requires no effort, it simply is. And as you breathe this rhythm, let my tale end. The silent bard, leaving, did not leave me gold or magic. He left me this rhythm. A rhythm that allows me to sit here in a small wooden tavern and feel stronger than any dragon. Because the dragon screams, and I listen. I listen to Delphine quietly breathing behind the counter. I listen to the coals settling. I listen to Skyrim, outside in the deep darkness, breathing its slow, majestic, icy breath. And I know that everything is all right. We are safe, we are warm, and we have no need to rush anywhere. From this moment, my friend, I will stop speaking. There is only silence left, silence full of peace, silence full of Skyrim. May this silence, which I have created for you, become your deepest calm. Good night.